Hi, this is Abby Main, and this is my final exam. The landscape of fear study I looked at was this one done in 2016 in South Central Norway. So there was a lightning strike that killed around 400 reindeer, and this study was observing the effects of the reindeer carcasses on the area, specifically how rodents are affected by it. So the conclusion was that rodents tended to start avoiding areas where certain scavengers were nearby. So they weren't as bothered by the foxes, which are one of their predators, but they were much more worried about where the ravens were actually scavenging these. So as you can see, the red dots show you where the species are. So you're looking at your foxes right here. The bigger the dot, then the more prevalent that species is. And the black area is where all the carcasses were. So as you can see, there are a lot of red foxes in the area the whole time. There were birds for a while, and while the ravens were actually there, the rodents avoided those specific areas. And once the ravens left, the rodents came back to that specific area. Okay, so the primate that I'm going to talk about is the guinea baboon, aka Papio Papio. So he has a hairless face and then a hairless bottom as well. The face is black, and then females have a red and swelled up rump to show when they are ready to reproduce. The hair is red. They're sometimes called the red baboon. Their forelimbs and hind limbs are the same length, and they have very short digits. As you can see, they have very large canines down here, and then they have very broad molars. So they, hence the name, are near Guinea, which is in West Africa. So this is a really small area in West Africa that they inhabit. They will live in savannas or forests, but they're normally found in savannas. As far as their diet, they're pretty much food generalists. They'll forage fruit, grass, seeds, leaves, roots, fungi, crops, sometimes eggs or insects. They're pretty much always terrestrial foraging. Because they have really small digits, they're not very good climbers, so they're not going to go up into the trees to climb. But they do, to get into trees to hide from predators when they're sleeping, they'll sometimes jump up there from a cliff. So the social structure, generally speaking, it's one male, a lot of females in the juvenile groups. Sometimes there will be all male groups where they have not found a mate yet. Uniquely enough, the males are actually willing to share the females with each other. These groups can be fluid. They're like at one time, they thought that it was always one male and a lot of females in the group. However, there have also, this study in 2011 showed that sometimes there can be multi-male groups as well. So sometimes males will interact with each other socially. It helps, it seems that the ones that interact and have good bonds with other males are able to avoid conflict better. However, having that sociality takes away their reproductive fitness because they're not spending as much time with the females. They are near threatened as far as their conservation status. That's mostly due to they are adaptable in general, since they can live in a variety of habitats, and they can also eat a lot of different things. However, agricultural expansion is hurting them, and because they'll forage on crops, they're hunted a lot, and they're also hunted for their meat, so that's hurting their populations as well. So as far as the article that we read on sound pollution, basically more watercrafts, deep sea drilling, sonar, all that stuff are creating a lot of added noise into the ocean, and noise is a part of how animals behave with each other. So that's going to impact how they behave in general. So this impacts very small organisms and very large organisms anywhere in the ocean. Their ability to use echolocation, to find prey, to avoid predators, all that's affected. This was first noticed in 2002 when many beached whales were found, and they thought it might be a result of the noise pollution. So as far as mammals, specifically mysticetes, so the baleen whales tend to move away from the vessels when they're emitting a sonar, and that's going to affect their foraging behavior. And that also increased their vocals, which is the Lombard effect. So they're trying to put their vocalizations over the noise. Like when you're in a crowded room, you tend to, or a crowded bar, you tend to raise your voice a lot. Odontic studies, so similar to baleen whales, the study showed where they were pretty much avoiding the vessels, having louder and more vocalizations with each other, and they actually had less locomotion, so they were moving around a lot less. Dolphins completely changed their route of travel that they were taking, and also dive patterns changed, and they spent a lot less time resting. For sirenians, they did not seem to avoid boats at one point. People thought that maybe they couldn't hear them because there was a lot of collisions with these boats. That turns out that it was more due to the time they spent at the surface of the water. For pinnipeds, they left hull outsides, but had that had a lot more to do with seeing the boats than hearing the boats, and the noise can change or mask their communication with each other. So as far as this is kind of a new thing that we're noticing, how noise pollution can affect the ocean. Like I said, that we first started talking about it in 2002. So there's a lot more research needed. One would be we need to cover more species. Most of the focus was on bottlenose dolphins and humpback whales. More species need to be studied for sure. And the research rarely looked at non-cetaceans. We also need to include more geographic area. So especially in Antarctic waters, which are getting a lot more tourism. So a lot more boats are there. And we also need to be looking at more developing countries, not just our developed countries. We also need to look at different vessel types. So we need to do more studies on, especially if you think about whale watching, these boats are specifically going out to find the whales. So you need to look at these cetacean tourism vehicles and how that's going to impact the cetacean's behavior. And then also, there's not many studies on just personal watercraft, going out on a jet ski or with your friends on a boat or on your own fishing boat. We also need to look more at the type of impact. So a lot more focus has been done on how it affects their vocalization and their movements throughout the ocean, which I explained on the last slide, but we haven't done many studies on a broader look at how it's going to affect the populations in the coming years.